Hello and welcome back to Where Are All My Friends? I am recording this intro immediately after finishing the podcast because I am feeling so inspired and excited after this conversation. It is with Aaron Gillespie from Underoath, and we came into this conversation. I knew that the band had written a new album, and I just wanted to talk to my friend about it. I didn't have a full-on series of questions, but I just wanted an honest perspective of his view of making this album with the rest of the band and how it came to be. And what this conversation ended up being was the realest conversation, and it was so cool. We also talk a little bit in the beginning of just how wildly interesting and challenging it is to be a creative in this day and age, and what taking some time to reflect has taught us. Very interesting, extremely real conversation. Just like the last time, I left this being so inspired by him and impressed by him. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Thank you for listening. Enjoy. Share it if you like it. I was listening back to our the last bit of the episode, and it was like really cool. Like it hit me all over again, just like that conversation.
It was a great conversation.
And
yeah. I was thinking about our last podcast, and we were kind of talking about like my origin story, you know, and as much as I talk about that, I was just thinking about talking to you today as well. And when you do a podcast, when you do an interview, a lot of times people ask you your origin story, you know, how did you get going? Or like, you know, whether you're an artist or a musician or a filmmaker or whatever the fuck you do, there's always like that question. And I think something that I never talk about, and I wanted to mention this to you today because it's super interesting. And I've had 2 weeks off. This is the first thing. I haven't done anything for 2 weeks. So, which has been super nice. But I was thinking about this a lot lately with being in the arts, which I hate that phrase, but it's true. Like, I'm in the arts. What was
our other phrase from the last one? Authentic. That was our, like, we're like, fucking damn it.
There's always a phrase, but you know, like being in the arts, like we've sort of been at the mercy of this thing the last 2 years. And whenever I have time off, like I really try to like take stock of like where I'm at, you know, and I don't mean like financially or my career, not that way. I mean, like, where am I at? Like as a person that makes stuff. Like, after 2 weeks off, going forward, am I going to be healthy? You know, because I work like I talked with you about last time. I work on a lot of other people's music, and I don't want to like dip a rotten toe in somebody's pool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
interesting.
So I've been thinking about this, and I was going to I haven't talked to anybody about this, and I thought it'd be a fun place for us to start today. Like, how have I been affected? And anybody who creates, and especially people that create for other people, like, how have we been affected over the last, let's call it 20 months, 21 months, whatever, for the sake of what we do and what we're talking about, like, how have we been affected moving forward?
Yeah.
And how do we like unpack that? Because I've been having these weird, like, dude, like fucking like manic mornings where like I wake up, and it's so strange. I'm like, I suck at music. Like, my life is over. Like, I'm no good at this. And then by noon, I'll have made something. I'm like, I'm the best. Look at what I've created. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it's 3 p.m. and I'm like, I'm awful.
Yeah.
I should get a job at the grocery store. Like,
dude, it's crazy that you're saying that because like, one, I've experienced it too. Like, just, I don't know what it is, like this amount of time for reflection or whatever, but like, not only myself, but like so many of my friends, I would say 98% of my friends, I have had a similar conversation of like, hey, have you questioned literally everything you've ever done in the point of existence and if you're even doing the right thing at all? Dude. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, and is it all around Corona? Is that it? Or is it like,
I don't know.
Is it just that we're this bad with idle time? Like it's the weirdest fucking thing, isn't it?
So what you just said is the part that I am wrestling with. And that was my next sentence before we started talking more is, are we horrible as creative people with idle time? Like, are we capable of resting?
Right.
And the answer that I have deduced in the last 2 weeks, because typically, even during the pandemic, like I'm here in the studio making someone's stuff 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week. Like I'm busy.
Yeah.
But the last 2 weeks, music shuts down. Like no
Right.
one
Oh,
does
dude,
anything.
it fucking shuts down.
It shuts down. Like, so
A lot of
I
industry does.
just stopped working for the first time in a year. And I realized how bad I am at rest. Like I don't rest well.
Dude, you're speaking my language.
Isn't that weird though? And I talked to like other people who are like friends of mine who are like, with quotation fingers, regular people. Like they have like business jobs.
Yeah,
And they
a
like
little more structure, a little more normal.
They're like, last Friday I talked to a buddy who's like, isn't this great? And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna shave my head. Like I'm miserable. And I'm going through these stages, you know, of like imposter syndrome, fucking like I'm the best, like all of this stuff. And it's never been like this. You know, we always take these 2 weeks off and it's never been like this. So my question is, are we bad at resting because we've been, finger quotation marks, resting for 20 months?
Yeah.
Or is it just like a new thing? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what do you think?
I've been thinking about this as well. And I think it's a combination of things. Cause like lately, something that I keep telling myself is, well, it's slow down, but it's like, it's the idea of being okay with that because that's what I can't do.
Right.
And I realize that it's really fucking easy to dodge or not confront your problems when you're really busy. When I get like this, like I really actually stressed myself out with goals this year. I was like trying to summarize and put all my goals together and it wasn't
wrote it
fun.
out.
Yeah. I try. Not that I'm like fucking Mr. Life Coach or anything like that, but like I really try to name some goals and make them actionable and tangible and put something on paper. But like I took away all of the hyper focused details and all of this like obsessive feeling. And I just went back to that energy of what feels good. And that helped me a lot. So I think, I don't know how to answer that, but I think that it's a very real thing that we all feel. And I just had to like
same thing,
chill.
Essentially, you know, I essentially I did the exact same thing on a different level. Like, I think with me, I'm not a goal writer because, much like you just said, I believe that it would eat me. Like if I sat here and wrote out what I want to happen in 22, I don't know that two things would happen. Number one, I would not write anything down. I would stare at an empty screen or a piece of paper, or I would write down write Beyonce's next single. You know what I mean?
That what you just said there, that's what fucks you up.
That's it.
You write, you're like, okay, cool. What would be great? I'd love to write that. And then when you're not doing it, you're like, I'm a fucking worthless piece of shit. I wrote it down. Why am I not writing Beyonce's next single?
So, and I think it's brought on by, you know, with me in the music industry, and this is the people that I have in my corner and on my team and in my band are the best. And you know, some of them, like, they're the best.
Yes.
But sometimes the other people in your life, even if they're, quote, the best, can bring pressure too. You know, my publisher, who is like one of the closest people in the world, and someone that she's who I work with the most, more than Randy, more than anyone. She's like my day-to-day boss, right? Like we have a catalog of hundreds of songs together, and she'll just say things like 2022 star emoji, it's gonna be the thing, and I'm like, is it? You know,
right?
Is it? Like, and she means nothing but amazingness. You know what I mean? Like she's like involved in massive songs. She's had songs placed with Beyonce and shit. You know what I mean? So I'm like, am I like good enough to like warrant your star emoji? Cause right now, like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So much like you just said, where you simplified it, in the last 2 weeks, what I've decided is like, I just have to make the best shit I can make. And that shit might not be good enough for Beyonce. Well, I'm saying Beyonce. I don't even know why I'm saying Beyonce, but you know what I mean? Like,
sure, insert huge artist.
Yeah, here. Whatever. Like, maybe it's not that, but it's at least is as high as I can get, you know, and not even like as good as I can get, but as true as I can make it. You know, I think that's my goal for 2022. And just, I'll say it out into the ether just to be heard, is like, I want to make the realest shit in 2022, whether that's live performances or recording songs for the people, lyrics, like whatever I write down, whatever I put down on any recording machine or whatever stage I step onto. I just want it to be true. You know what I mean? And I think that like that's freed me up in the last couple of weeks a lot. It's just going, look, like if it's big, whatever, if it's small, whatever, but if it's real, then at least it'll be fucking real. You know, like you just said, like, what do I actually fucking care about? Do you know what I mean? Like, and when I break it all down, it's like, I care about being a good friend, a good husband, a good dad, and honest at what I make. That's really all I care about. And when you just take, it's only 4 things, right? And that's freed me up, because if everything explodes, no matter what happens, those 4 things can always happen. I can always be a good friend, a good husband, a good dad, and honest at my creation.
There's this book, Atomic Habits, and it's not even like my Bible, but like there's just this one spot in it that I was like, that's actually really cool. Off of your 4 things, if you were to make new habits and only focus on that, it will, at first, it'll go like a hockey stick. It won't be a linear graph. So you have linear graph of progress, and then you have like this little bit. And for a long time, it's lower because you're breaking the mold of always checking socials or getting caught up in busy shit and getting distracted. And it's this weird valley, but then it's a hockey stick of incremental growth. And he calls that gap the valley of disappointment. And I'm like, yeah. But I think, again, it's like, you have to be comfortable with that. And I think that when I feel that, it's like, fuck, this is probably personal growth. If I'm thinking of this and if I'm uncomfortable and if I'm in this mindset, maybe that means that I'm aware of something that I wasn't before and I'm challenging myself to grow. So fuck you, world. Let's grow.
The valley of disappointment is so dark.
Dude, I know.
Dude, this reminds me of something. So I guess it would have been like in September, this past September, we played our first show. Underoath played our first show in like almost 2 years. It was like, the guy, I think Spencer and Chris or somebody went and found the number. It was like 600 and fucking what, you know, some like grotesque 3-digit number. And we went and played this. We went and played this festival in Virginia, and it was awesome. Like it was awesome. There was so many.
Dan Newman went with you, right? There was some tour.
Yeah. It was just this huge thing, and I posted a picture of it. And it was just, you know, it's the obligatory, there's all these people and we're like
all epic. You have the drumstick, your hair's going crazy. It's
that fucking picture, you know, like every guy has that, you know, every guy or gal that's in a band at some point posts that photo. So I posted that photo, and I haven't told anybody this, but this is what I think about when I see that photo now. So let's rewind. Our band really didn't have any success until, like, real world success until 2005, right?
Yeah.
We put out Chasing Safety in 2004, and the ladder started sort of climbing or whatever. But
you were in the valley of disappointment.
Well, let me get there. So I posted this picture a couple months ago, and there's tens of thousands of people or whatever that shit is. And I think about this when I think about that photo now. So in 2002 or 2003, we started touring full time. And at that point, there was no money involved, right? We didn't have like, there was no like, we're going to get a bus or stay in a hotel. It wasn't that. It was like, you would meet, I don't even know how this happened. Like, I lived for years like this. We used to just stay at people's houses from the show.
Yeah, dude.
How the fuck does that happen?
I actually talked about that on another podcast, and I was like, hey, if this is still a thing, will you let us know?
Dude,
and like,
I would love to know.
It is. It's still real. It's still real.
Okay, so we can unpack that later, but let me tell this one story. So I don't understand how you would find the folks that would let you stay at their house. I don't get it. Like, I don't know. Did you say it from stage? I don't remember. Like,
Dude,
I have no idea. But
yeah.
one particular evening, and this is what I think about when I think about this successful photo that I post on Instagram. One particular evening, we went to this girl's house, and it's weird from the jump. You know, it's like,
oh, the
kind
whole
of
thing.
out of
When
the
you
way.
explain that on paper too, of like staying at strangers' houses after shows, people are like, what the fuck? Like,
I'd lived
Sorry.
that way for years, which I don't know how I'm alive or how I escape. I don't get it. Anyways, like this particular evening, we get there and there's like not a lot of lights on. It's weird, right? Like, and the house is like it's all different splits, like a split level kind of home. I live in a split level home now, so like I'm on the third floor, and then there's a middle floor, and then I'm on the bottom floor. There's a middle floor, and then we have a third floor. And the house was kind of like that, but everything was stone. And I'm making it sound grandiose. This was like not grandiose. We get there and we're disgusting. You know, at that stage, you like shower once a week. It's like,
yeah, you're a
and so
creature.
somebody says something about like, hey, can we use your shower? She goes, no, the shower's closed, but closed. She said closed. She goes, no, the shower's closed. We have a bathtub upstairs. I'm like, fuck. So one guy goes upstairs and tries to take a bath, and somehow it was the only room that was heated. So we all ended up in the room with this dude while he's taking a bath. Just hanging out. You know what I mean? Like,
it sounds so insane, but that also is just Tor. You're just like, well, yeah, I mean, it's the heated room. So you
drain, refill, repeat, like in a line. And this girl who we don't know, dude, I swear, this girl who we don't know keeps coming in. Do you guys need anything? And we're like, no.
Do you at least have like a little curtain or something for the bathtub?
Dude.
Or is it just the honor system of like, don't look at your guys while they're bathing?
Yeah, it was wild. So at some point, dude, I wish I could like, my memory was more vivid because some of these stories.
It's perfect this way with the holes in it.
So at some point, I go downstairs and I'm like, man, I gotta pee really bad. And I asked her, she's like in the kitchen area. I'm like, can I use the bathroom? She's like, you guys were in the bathroom. I'm like, and at this point, I'm like, there's a naked dude in the tub. The other guys are sitting on the ground. Can I just pee in the other bathroom? I don't want to use the shower. So I go into the closed shower, right? And I pull the curtain back. I'm interested. You know, I'm like, I gotta know why the shower's closed. Somebody's got to tell me. So I'm peeing, and while I'm peeing, in the act of peeing, I open the shower curtain, and there is a fucking skunk in the, you know, like the tub shower.
Is it alive or dead?
It's alive, totally alive. And it's like, I can hear its fingernail. You know what I'm talking about? It's like scratching around, and I'm just blown away. I'm blown away.
Was it like a pet skunk, do you think?
I don't know. I didn't say anything. I
shut
the door. We slept on the floor for 3 hours and we left and never heard from her or anything again. But I tell that stupid ass story to say like the 17 years between those two vignettes, you know, like the tens of thousands of people a couple months ago.
The drumstick hitting.
You know, like the hair and like all the equipment and the people, and they know the words and the thing. And then, you know, taking a leak and there's a fucking skunk.
With the skunk shower.
And like that arc, that hockey stick between there and there. And every stop along the way feels bigger than it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and as we're talking about it, it's so interesting to me that like, you know, you've seen me in the element with the stick in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it. It's not that exciting. Do you know what I mean? Like,
what are you talking about? The production and the crazy.
No.
And
but I'm
everything?
saying like, but in conversation, what's more exciting, the skunk or the drumstick?
The skunk.
100%. You see what I mean? Like, so I think, you know, about your book. Like, I think that the beginning of like, what's really the important stuff, like, and designing that is more important than the valley and then even the goal. Because I've met the goal and I'm thankful. Like the goal was to get all the way there. And there was a many different goals set from Skunk House to stage 8 weeks ago in front of 10,000 people or whatever. You know what I mean? There's many different bars set in between, but I think my favorite part of all of it is down to those 4 little things. We were doing something we loved. We were being really honest with people. We might have been sleeping in a skunk house, but at least we had that. You know what I mean? And the problems then, the problems that we had to solve and the feelings that we had and the communication that we were able to have was so much more profound when it was so distilled down to that really simple thing. So what I'm trying to say is, how do we get back to Skunk House on that level? Mentally, how do we mentally get back to Skunk House but still be in the photo with the stick? You know what I'm saying?
That just fucked me up.
How do we do it? I think that's the goal, dude. I think
is to be in the weeds and to be in that skunk house energy.
Yes.
But do you ever okay, so this is crazy that you're saying this, because I was telling you, I was kind of going through goals, and I have one other friend and we always bounce goals back and forth to each other. And I did this exercise and I actually got emotional when I did this, but
oh wow.
I wrote myself a letter to myself 5 years in the future. And this was right when I moved to California, and it was so hard for me. And I'll just read you this last little thing I wrote to myself because it feels this, and it's that same thing. So it concludes with, remember, my friend, right now you're going through the hardest times, but just like WeCar told SIO on Warp 2011, enjoy every second of them, because in a strange way, they're the most fun. Appreciate this ride. Life becomes a lot better when you have fun with it.
Ugh.
That's the fucking skunk house, dude.
That's the truth, though. I was listening the other day. I was listening to, I think it was the Labeled podcast, which is Matt from Emory. Matt Carter has a podcast that kind of tells the stories and history of Tooth and Nail Records, which is, where all our career started. And Tim was on, and I had never listened to it.
Oh, his is so good.
Oh, dude. This is so cheesy, and he's going to make fun of me because he listens to your podcast. But I got emotional listening to it. And what I loved about the podcast is it wasn't about Define the Great Line, selling 100,000 copies in week 1, and all the rooms that Underoath is sold out, and blah, blah, fucking blah, all that stuff. It was about 04. It was like this vignette of time when we were first doing it. When we made that album, and it was crazy to hear him talk about it, because everybody in any situation has a different viewpoint, different vantage point. And his was so interesting. And I literally got emotional listening to it, wishing, and my life is so good. I'm so thankful. I have a beautiful family, but I was I wish we were there, and not so much physically, I wish we were in 04, but I wish that intellectually, life was as simple as it was in 04.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that always, as soon as you go back and you reminisce, it feels simpler. I'm sure you had bullshit problems then. Of course. I'm sure those weighed upon you. But now you're just focusing and remembering that crazy special moment.
Dude, I think I'm the worst at it because I'm creative, and you create scenarios that are worse than they are. You wake up, I'm the worst. 3 p.m., I'm the best. It's 4 p.m. You know what I mean? And you need people. It's great that you have that friend. You guys always bounce goals off each other. You need people to be yeah, man, remember what you wrote yourself, or remember what you told yourself. I think back in 04, of course there was bullshit. Do we have enough t-shirts? Do we know where we're going to sleep tonight? Those are way different issues than we have the biggest tour of our career in 8 weeks, and the world is in a weird. Those are different issues.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Do we have enough gas to get from Detroit to Lansing?
Some definite new levels, new devils moments right there.
Yes, dude. So I think, I think that, again, in summation of this whole thing is distilling everything down to just the simplest stuff. what fucking really, really matters. You know, and I think for me, if I try to compartmentalize it in my life, it's being a great dad, a great husband, a great friend, and making real stuff in my creative life. Right. And I think in Underoath, it has to look like this: making the realest shit and being in a truly great position as friends with the guys. That's all that actually matters. If I really look at Underoath and go, what do I fucking care about? Yeah. And I'm thankful. We have many fans. We're so lucky. We're so fucking lucky. Don't get me wrong. But if I really distill it down in Underoath, like, what are my goals there? It's to make the realest stuff that I know how to, and to keep my friendships intact with those guys, because there's been many times in the last 20 years when they weren't.
Well, I was just going to say that to you. It's like, okay, we're reminiscing on the good old days, like 04, right? But I remember from our last podcast, I asked you, I'm like, if you could go back and change anything, what would it be? And we basically get to this spot where you're like, we were at the best time of our career and our lives as far as growth and where the band was at, but we couldn't communicate. And we were all in this terrible turmoil amongst each other. So it's like, that must have been a fucking horrible feeling. And that must have been the same thing of waking up and being like, this sucks. So it's like, you have gotten past that. And now for you to say that, and like, look where you're at with your brothers. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's hard. I think it's hard to it's hard at some point to look at this success, whatever you want to call all that garbage, and go, is this, is being creatively locked together and locked in our friendship more important? And it is. And there is a point in my life where I don't know that I would have said, I would have cited some bullshit example. Like, look at Oasis, man. Biggest band in the world. Wow, they fucking hate each other.
They hate each other.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But the truth is, in my Underoath life, that's what I really care about, is that we make the realest, truest stuff, and that we keep our friendships intact.
Dude, that's so beautiful. Yeah. And I had an idea for this podcast because, and I'm so glad we talked about everything leading up to this, but I was like, I want to talk about the new album, but it's like, that's so cliche. It's like, oh, you tried a new sound, or what are you excited about? And I was like, no, I know exactly.
Let me stop you really quick though. I've only done one interview about the new album. So you should ask it all, because I don't know. Well, I've been super busy before the last 2 weeks. I've been super busy, and usually me and Spencer do all that press shit. And I've done less this time just because my day job has been super busy. So I've only done one interview about Voyeurist. It was with Apple Music. So
okay. Well, I promised you though that this is going to be different, because I have to be myself. I can't front like I'm a music journalist, and I don't play music, and there's a lot of technical things I'll miss. So like, I can't cover that properly. I'm not the guy for that. But I know exactly what I want to talk about. And it's similar to what you were saying with Tim explaining that. And it's like, yes, we always talk about the grass is greener, but there will be a moment that this conversation is a point in time that we look back on that feels like some amount of, I don't know if it's the good old days, but it's some amount of reminiscing.
God, that's wild.
So to me, I just want to know 100% you, specifically Aaron, going into this album and like your feelings. And I want you to paint that picture and that experience and that vignette just for yourself, because that's all we can speak on. And I don't really care who features on the album or what it covers and that. Like, that's just not me, and I won't represent it properly. But take me to day one of you guys being like, all right, it's album time. Where did you record? What month did that start? Where's your head at? What are you inspired by? Like, take me there.
How long? I mean, it's a saga, man.
Well, I'm here for as long as you can.
So we made Erase Me it came out in 2018. And I have to go back that far for you to understand anything I'm about to say. We made that album, and we were pretty creatively disjointed. And let me tell you why. We got back together. Oh shit, I'm going back further. We got back together. We got back together in 2016. The band got back together. We did that Rebirth tour where we played They're Only Chasing Safety and Define the Great Line cover to cover.
Yeah.
And we really thought that was it for the band.
Really?
That was the whole plan.
Yeah.
Wow. We sat in a seafood restaurant in the middle of that tour And we're like, are we going to keep going? Because the tour was like sold out months in advance. Like it was crazy. That was it was nuts. And everyone was like, I think this is it. And some of us were like, maybe not, I don't know. After that tour, Spencer and I's friendship, we always text each other like every day, and we always have, but like we started being like, I want to see you. So he started flying to Salt Lake City where I live, and I have a studio here, and we started making songs. Like just doing it. This is for Erase Me, right? So this is like 2017 now. And then that sort of like Get Back Together tour kept going. So like we did a tour with Bring Me the Horizon. And then we're like, well, let's take the Rebirth tour to Australia. Let's take it to Europe. Let's take it to England. It kept going. And at this point, we kind of knew, like Tim had started bringing like song vignettes to sound check, and still like sort of secretly Spencer and I were writing songs, and then we started sharing it with the guys, and everyone wasn't sure if they were all the way in or not. It was a whole thing, right? So finally, the four of us, like there's 6 guys in the band, but 4 guys record and write.
Sure.
So we were like, the 4 of us were like, okay, let's make a record. So I hadn't been in the studio with the band since 2008.
Oh my God.
Right? Because I quit in 2010, which we talked about.
That's right.
Which we talked about last time.
Exactly.
So I felt like I don't want to step on any toes. And
you almost felt like the new kid in your own band. Yeah.
And there is like sort of a power struggle sometimes between Spencer and I. And it's not I
would imagine that's with many bands.
Yeah, but the power struggle is weird. And it's gone now. And I'll get to that. It's gone now. But at the time, who sings more, who sings less? It's always been that kind of thing. You're the drummer, so you should sing less. But I want to sing this part. But I wrote it. But so do you know what I mean? And we've always write all the lyrics together, and it doesn't matter who sings what. But there's always been like does somebody in the band, someone else in the band want me to sing more? Want you to sing? You know what I mean? So I sort of just took the seat on Erase Me of like, I'm just gonna go with it. And I was very heavy-handed in the writing. Don't get me wrong. Like we wrote all the lyrics together, but I did not open my mouth 50% of the time.
You didn't want to step on toes. Like you guys had this new vibe. You didn't want to fuck it up. It felt fragile.
Yes.
You were back in it. Yeah.
Okay, we make that record. It's awesome. I love that record today. It gets nominated for a Grammy. Crazy shit happens. We tour the world. 2019. We tour with Alice in Chains, who was like my high school favorite, and Korn.
Yeah.
And Thanksgiving of 2019, we do a residency at the House of Blues in Disney with A Day to Remember. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So all of our kids are there. The next step is writing a record. So this is November of 2019.
Oh my God. This is before any pandemic.
So
you're on the highest high. Underoath is back.
Yeah.
You're doing these incredible festivals and shows that are unbelievably bigger than things you've done in the past. We all
sat together at the Grammys. It was crazy, dude, right? Like we didn't win, but still, we were there.
So what?
It was magic. You know what I mean? Like I have this Tiffany medal they gave us hanging up on the wall right here. So anyways, it was awesome. So Thanksgiving of 2019, we played these shows, and I'm sorry I have to go back so far, but you'll understand. So we start talking about making the next album, and we've got pieces of songs, and we've been sharing stuff at this point, and it's way more collaborative now. I've been back in the band for 3 years. I'm ready to fuck. You know what I mean? Like,
you're back.
Yeah. So like we're sharing stuff and doing the whole thing, and we decide we're going to use the producer from the last album. So, but we have this weird thing. We're like, we want to make it at home in Florida. About a mile and a half from King State, our friend is the pastor of a church, and it's this old building that was built in probably the 50s or 60s, maybe older. But they built like a radio broadcast studio there in the 50s, and it's still there. It's like on the 3rd floor of this building, and he's one of our oldest friends. So we just have keys, and we built our own studio up there. Tim built a studio, and then we just started adding to it through the years. Like we make all kinds of shit up there. That's where we made Voyeurist. So, but we decide we're going to fly this producer in, and we want to do a lot of the lifting ourselves, because in 20 years, we've never self-produced. So we want to have like a produced by producer X / Underoath. So the
Interesting.
pandemic starts. So we write in February all together. All 6 of us actually write together in Florida, which is the first time we've done that since Lost in the Sound of Separation in
Feb 2020?
In 2020, February.
Oh my God. So this is actually before the pandemic hits.
Yes. So we all write together.
Writing on the walls of
dude,
it. I'm so sorry.
Dude, you're right. You're right. Dad joke right. So we write 2 songs, maybe 3. One was a song called We're All Gonna Die, which is hilarious.
Fuck.
That's on the actual album.
Fuck.
A song called Numb, which is on the actual album. And a song called Take a Breath, which is on the album. We wrote in this one session, all 6 of us in one room.
Wow.
Jamming, old school, drinking wine. And then the world closes. So we get through these sessions, and then it becomes like we're passing files back and forth, and the world's closed, right? So like I'm working on Zoom all the time. Tim is trying.
Everybody goes back home. Like everybody.
Tim
goes
is trying to figure out how to keep King State afloat.
That's right.
It's like fucking wild times. So everything kind of gets pushed. So we're supposed to, and in June of 20, we're supposed to go on tour with Slipknot.
Fuck.
And they just straight up cancel. They don't postpone. Like they're just like, nope, we're good. Like they just shut it, turn it off. You know what I mean? Like, nope. So that gets canceled. So then we start like around the summertime, we start traveling back to Florida, like to write, which is not, Florida's dangerous at the time. And in the middle of the summer, summer of 20, we do the observatory live stream. So we really put,
we talked about that.
Yeah. So we put, we're right in the middle of writing the record at this point, not making it yet. So right after that, I go home for like 2 or 3 weeks. Then I come back. This is like September, October, of 20. And we write the bulk of the album in that studio, the 4 of us. And with the plan of knowing at this point, we're supposed to make this album in 20. And I'll get to the juicy stuff in a second, but I want to lay the framework so you understand.
I'm in, dude. I'm fucking in.
So you understand the timeline is so important because of what was happening in the world. And I haven't even talked about the album yet, but I'll get there. So we, September, October, into November a little bit, we wrote the bulk of the record, 95% of the record.
Wow.
Me, Tim, Chris, and Spencer, and JJ, our front of house guy who engineered the album, was there the whole time.
Amazing.
And James came by at some point. Grant came by at some point. We always have an open door policy, you know?
Yeah.
And we really love this stuff. Like, I like it. So I like the demos so much. I think we could have put them out sometimes.
Wow.
So this leaves us around the holidays. So everyone goes home, holidays of last year ago.
Yeah.
So everybody goes home and we're like, okay, January 21, we're going to make this record. Right. So we go home, we have a Zoom call, and we still, in all this time, we still haven't nailed the producer for the album. Like we know who he's going to be. He's in to do it, or so we think. He's in to do it. He's going to fly to Florida to our place, you know, because we felt
Can I ask
truly
a dumb question?
Yeah.
You might have literally just been about to say it. At this point, if you're that close, did it never cross your minds of like, fuck it, let's just do it ourselves?
Hold on. So
okay.
So we're like Define the Right Line, Chasing Safety, all those records, we didn't have we had producers, but it was more people like steering us the last 10%.
Yeah.
We put all this work in. And then so we're like, so what if not like Erase Me? What if we go back to the roots of we just need the executive to come in and push the last 10%. Maybe we can't trust ourselves for the last 10% because we never have in 20 years.
Right, yeah.
We've never completely done it ever. Right.
Yeah. And I think that anyone can relate to that feeling because as much as you know you're good at what you do and you're a professional, hitting send and shipping the final product without anyone else touching it feels incomplete. And it might be a mental thing, but having someone button up that 10% just validates it.
Dude, I always think about it like NASCAR because I'm a race fan.
Hell
as you
yeah.
know. If you were to frame off do a NASCAR, like a stock car, it's different now because of next gen, and that's a whole fight that we can have later in the podcast. But if you were to frame off build a car, and I'm going to Daytona in February, and there was no crew chief or car chief, no engineer, no break team, you'd be fucking scared. Even if you had all the parts and pieces, right? Like, even if you could believe you could do it, you'd be terrified, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going to take this to Daytona and go 215 miles an hour. I'm going to kill myself. That's what's going to happen.
Totally. Like, this thing's gonna, no other eyes or hands on the car to check it. Like,
this is going to come. This is going to catch on fire and come apart. I'm going to die. That's so,
dude. Yeah.
So in many ways,
you had that feeling with the album, or
not yet.
Continue the story.
Not yet. Yeah. So we wanted that extra 10%. So this is crazy. 3 weeks before start date, we still haven't had the producer sign a contract or agree on or make financial agreements. So we do this Zoom call. I'm sitting in this seat and he's like, I only got a few minutes. I'm busy. Or I only got a few. Like, it was really strange. Like, he was like, you could tell he was like, and I love this guy dearly. Like, he's a friend.
Yeah.
But you could tell it was like, it wasn't
just something with
we weren't
the vibe,
connecting.
Something. Yeah.
And I think that was just the universe, whatever you want to call it, kind of handing us what we really wanted, you know? But he was like, I don't know. Like, he's like, I don't really want to be involved 10%. I want to edit the drums. I want to do all the, and Tim was like, well, we want to do that. We just want you to. So basically, we could not meet eye to eye on how much of the work he did and didn't do. Cause he felt like as a producer, he wanted to be really, really involved, which I don't blame him for.
Totally.
After that phone call, after that Zoom call, he hangs up. He's like, let me know what you decide. So we all get into a conference call and we were like, let's just fucking go. Do it ourselves. And at that moment, this is a year ago. At that moment, it's like, it was really empowering, you know, like, let's fucking do it. Like, we all make music for other people for a living.
Yeah.
But it was like, you've never built your own Daytona 500 car. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I get off the phone and immediately I'm like, what did we just do?
Oh, fuck.
And now the story starts. So 3 weeks later, I fly to Florida and we start making an album with no help.
Oh my God. For the first time in Underoath's career.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I wouldn't take any of it back. But there was a ton of moments during that thing where I hated what we were doing. Not musically, but just like the fact that we had decided, and I think Spencer probably said to me 100 times, took us 100 days to make the record. And I think in those 100 days, he probably said to me 100 times, like, this is why you hire other people. This is why you hire other people. This is why you hire. And it was never, this is the thing though. This is what you don't realize about creative, making something musical, making something creative and trusting yourself. This is what you don't realize, especially in music. Producers, the audio, like them making the song sound a certain way, I believe is less than 10%. I believe it's like 2.5%. And the other 98% is a social thing. Them like corralling the horses. You see what I'm saying? Like, I produce other artists and I know, like, it's about like making someone feel good and then not gaslighting him against another guy. You know what I mean? That whole thing.
There's a lot of like personal, mental back and forth that isn't just technical music.
So musically, we're all pretty happy. But socially, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And here's where the truth really comes out from me is there's always been this vocal power struggle. And it's not, I don't know whose fault it is. And that, you know, and I've never talked about it in the press before. So I don't know that, like, Spencer's a great singer, the best frontman. So it's not about like, do I want him to sing here or scream here or that, but like, there was this thing, there's always been this thing of like, who's going to do this? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what's this going to be like? Like, what are we going to do? What's this going to be like? It's always been that way. And in this session, I freaked out one day and was like, I have never been able to tell you when I think I should sing something. And I need you to be okay if I sing it with you still believing that it's coming out of your mouth. You know, we write everything together. And that moment is the most important moment to me in Underoath history, is us looking at each other and going, if I do it or if you do it, it doesn't matter. Like if you're doing it, it's just like I'm doing it because we did it together, and it doesn't matter whose mouth it comes out of. But this was like a knockdown, drag out 4-hour. We all got drunk as hell. Like it started out with him being like, fuck you guys. And me being like, well, fuck you, man.
It was a therapy session.
Like, but we've never had it to this extent where like Underoath has always been, and I'll say this begrudgingly, but truthfully, it's always, we've skirted a lot of stuff for a lot of times, especially with the singing scenario. Right. You know, like I sang a lot on Chasing Safety, and then he started singing more on Define the Great Line. And then, you know, they made a whole ass record without me.
Right.
And then I come back and I don't really put my whole foot in the gas on Erase Me. And then we get to Voyeurist.
You're very aware of that.
Yeah. So we get to Voyeurist, and I'm like, here's the whole thing. This is what I think, you know, and then in my fault, I wasn't saying every time, like, I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. You know, I was like playing both sides of the fence, like trying to be nice and like be the cool guy. But then also like I have disdain because I think I should sing this part. You know what I mean? And then I've got other guys in the band saying, hey man, like it'd be cool if you sang this. And then Spencer not knowing. And then so this one night, and I don't know at what process, we're pretty far in the process of making Voyeurist. Yeah. It just blows up. I'm like, no one will fucking tell you what they think because they're scared to. I mean, it's bad. Like, it's bad. And we were crying. I had this huge black bruise on my leg from punching my leg, from like being like, I fucking, you know what I mean? Like that. Like, at some point, JJ, our engineer and front of house guy, production manager, goes to the gas station and buys like a bucket of beer and sits it in the middle of the floor. And we just go for hours. And in the end, the conclusion that in my mind, and I think he would say the same thing, the conclusion that we came to is no matter who says it, it's coming out of both of our mouths. It doesn't matter who actually does it. But for the first time in our history as a band, we confronted that issue. And that to me is the crux of Voyeurist. So when I listen to it, it is my very, very, very favorite Underoath album because each guy is where he's supposed to be. You see what I'm saying? Like each guy is right where he should be as a singer. And it doesn't matter who's saying it. Like Spencer said, dude, this was so important to me. He told me the other day that we did that Digital Ghost live stream, like the third of almost a month ago.
Yeah.
And there's a part that I get off the drums and I'm like walking, and it's on the song Pneumonia. He goes, that's my favorite vocal part on the whole record. And in the past, and we would have fought over who sang that. Not fought, but it would have been like the happy fight. Like, I don't know, man. I think that like, you know what I mean? And I just sang it on the record because we had that big moment. And Tim was there and Chris was there. And it was brutal, dude. It was brutal. And I haven't talked about it, but I think Voyeurist is my favorite record because for the first time in 20 years, you get it's truly distilled Underoath. There is not a skeleton in the closet today in 2021. Not one. Which we've never, ever, 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 ever done. And I could go into like, you know, why you don't care about this. There's so many reasons why it sounds the way that it does and the choices that we made, and we made it ourselves. But what the important part, I think, for your podcast, and I think for you and I as friends to talk about is the fact that like, there's truly no skeletons in the closet on that record. In every other record before, I think there has been.
You have me fucked up, dude. That is so... I mean, earlier you were saying a huge goal of yours is to make the realest, most meaningful stuff to you in 2022. And it's like, if that does not show exactly that, like, dude, that is so huge. And to be in a band with them for 20 years, like, I feel it too. Like, it's crazy to talk about now, but like, that's so real. And that's not a point of disliking each other or any of these like things. It's just like, there's so many dynamics and there can be this tension and there can be all of these things and it's this respect and there's all of these things. So to be able to isolate and articulate that and to be like, again, it's crazy because you told me on that last podcast, the thing you wish you could have done was just take 2 or 3 shows off and talk.
Yeah.
And you were forced to do it and you fucking did it.
It was awful. I mean, I you know what's funny is like, I can't imagine making a record like that again. And I know that we're going to because we found a formula that works for us, but like maybe it'll be easier this time and maybe it won't. But like the conversation, like, I don't want to like dramatize it more than it should be, but like, it was ugly, man. Like, it wasn't like,
it was probably real.
It was real, but it wasn't like, I'm finally going to tell you what I've been thinking about. It was like, fuck you, dude. I hate you. Like, it was that,
it was,
like,
it was a lot.
I realized how deep it was. Spencer has publicly talked about he had a 15-year drug problem, and he's completely recovered from it. And we're so thankful. This is years ago, but like, in the height of our band, he was in the throes of this drug issue. And I think that I was holding on to a lot of stuff from that, because I was really the only one that was kind of clued in. I mean, everyone knew, obviously, but I was the only one that was really clued into how bad it was. And like, we were living together, and like, I saw it. And I think a lot of my issues with him, and a lot of our creative power struggle issues were rooted in that. For me, I don't know about for him, but for me, a lot of them were rooted in that. And I pulled that shit out, which was like, I think he was surprised more than anything that I remembered, that I remembered some of these scenarios from like 06, 07, 05.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how we really showed each other, I think, though, in that moment, in that day, that conversation, we really showed each other, hey, man, I love you because I remember this, and I love you because I want you to remember this with me. And maybe we can both get to zero because we both know where we were then. And we need to find a way to patch that up and heal that so we can make the greatest thing now, which is, and like,
you got there. You got past it, right?
But it was wild, dude.
What do you think got you there, though? Like, to like, in the essence of like, like a story, like what got you there? Was it you just being emotionally mature enough, and both of you being emotionally mature enough to finally be at the spot? Or was it the song just wasn't going to happen unless you had the conversation? Like, how did you get there?
That I wish that it was the latter, or the former instead of the latter. Yeah. Like, I wish I could tell you, Andrew, like, I'm 39 almost. Like, I've just matured so much emotionally. Like, it's incredible. Like, you wouldn't believe how emotionally mature I am. No, dude, it was, when you make music in the studio, like, I feel like there's these weird vignettes, and I'll get a little technical on you. I feel like there's vignettes of time when you're making an album. Like, and it's different in pop music. It's different in country. Country most of the time is made, the instruments are recorded live. Pop music is mostly computer work. With rock music, though, like, if you're recording, and they all flush, and they're all intertwined. Some rock music's all made on a computer, but like, with how we do it is there's real drums and real guitars and real bass and then real vocals, and then Chris is doing his thing simultaneously the whole time. Chris records himself, and you'll get a airdrop. Here you go. You know what I mean? That's kind of how he does it. He sits in the corner, and you don't hear anything for like 3 days. And then it's just and you're like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like, or he'll take like a whole day where he's like, no one come in until 1 p.m. I'm busy, and he'll like take over the speakers. But so there's vignettes when you're inside of making a record where there's drums for days, or like, there's like, I call them basic tracks for days, where there's guitars, bass, and drums for days, and there's no singing happening. You know what I mean? Like, Spencer and I are back at an Airbnb in the mornings and late at night, writing lyrics, and then like recording it into this microphone on my laptop, like making demos on top of the real tracks. There's all these moving parts. But it feels like it's compartmentalized when you're in it. Does that make sense? Like, you're like, I'm in drumland. Like, I'm not thinking about like the end product,
totally.
Like,
and like, there's like the album whiteboard, and you have the songs, and then you have every element. And like, I kind of know it. Like, as much as I'm not the artist, we
don't do the whiteboard thing, but like,
oh, okay.
We're very we're very unorganized in that way. But like, like, there's these vignettes of time. So it was like kind of punch time, vocal time. We were like halfway through, like, this whole thing happened like halfway through the album on vocals. And it got to a point where like, there was some stuff that I wanted to do and needed to do. And there's some stuff that I needed him to do in a way that I wanted him to do it. Not like sing it like I'd pilling you to, but like, I want this style instead of that style, Spencer.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was uncomfortable.
It was like, this is the vision, and it's time to record the vision.
Yeah. And and he has the same vision, but there's like, I'm talking about sections, you know what I mean? Like we're all like locked on the vision at this point. Like we didn't fire, but we never hired the producer. Like
right.
You know what I mean?
Decided
we're good on the vision in terms of like, but there's like little things that we need to change. And there's sections that I'll just come out and say, I want to sing. I don't want you to sing. I want to do it. And not because I really believe that I'm any cooler or better than you, but I think I'm better for that than you.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
the dynamic of Underoath, like whose voice sounds better for the song and for the part and what it's communicating.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I wish that it was emotionally mature, but it much like you just said in asking the question, it got to the place where like, we got to push the red button and we need to do this fucking now. And we're not ready to do this now. So how do we get ready to do this now? You know what I'm saying? Like that. So it was sort of like, gun to the head, pirate ship, walk the plank. It was going to happen if we were going to make Voyeurist, I think. Let me take it back. It was going to happen if we were going to make Voyeurist like Voyeurist lives today and comes out in 12 days.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't be coming out in 12 days if we hadn't have done that. Or it would be coming out and not have been completely what it is.
Or there's a world where you like break the band up off of not being able to communicate.
Again.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Again.
Fuck.
So it was like, and I look back on that day and I wish I had the date. I think about that often.
Around when was it?
What'd you say?
Around when?
March, probably March of 21, like February, March. I want to say maybe April, somewhere in there. Yeah. Probably March. I think March, because we would go we were on our own time. You know what I mean? So it took 100 days to make that record and then more days to mix it. So we just sort of like, we didn't unorganized.
It's crazy because I think about, I'm trying to remember when it was that I met up with you there. No, this was earlier. This was the end of 20. This was holiday time 2020.
Yeah.
Because I remember going to King State or the food store and seeing you and Spencer there. And it was exactly what you explained. You were just all in Florida working on the album, but like totally like just chopping it up, being homies.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like hearing every bit of emotion in that and oh my God, you painted that, dude.
It was crazy, dude. I really think that like, there's nothing worse than like, I'm such a fan of music, I listen to podcasts and I read the books and I have 1,000 vinyl in my living room and we listen to it every day. And like, I'm such a fan. And as a fan, if I take myself out of the equation and as an artist, I fucking hate when musicians are like, our new stuff is just the best. And I don't know why I hate it. Because I feel like in some ways it's like condescending. Like everything you loved about us before isn't as good as this. So you're wrong, listener.
Right. Yeah.
But
as a fan, you're like, fuck you. I like the album that I like.
But I will say this. I do think Voyeurist is the best Underoath record for the reasons that I just said.
Oh my God.
That it's like truly it. Like you're getting it. Like all of it. And I know that it doesn't sound like Define the Great Line or fucking Chasing Tape, whatever. We're 39 years old. But like, socially and emotionally, it is completely true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's completely.
Well, you know what's interesting is I don't consider myself Underoath super fan. I fucking love you guys as people and I respect the hell out of it. And I know the albums loosely enough. Like when I watch you play, I'm like, oh yeah, I know most of these songs, but like I can't tell you Underoath trivia. I can't go into this.
You're not listening to it in the gym. Yeah, I get it.
No. Like it's just like, oh yeah, this is dope. But like I'm not deep dive Underoath guy. When I listen to the singles that I've heard on Voyeurist, there is a feeling of this reminds me of old Underoath. And it feels, the word that I come to is raw. Yeah. And it's very interesting hearing you explain this because of course it's raw now. Hearing it, it's you guys who did it. It's pure, it's absolutely unfiltered Underoath. There's no other factor. So
Nope.
sure, you've grown up, your influence has changed, you've drawn inspiration from new things, production has evolved, but like it feels very raw in a cool way.
Well, dude, thank you, man. But I think the biggest thing I should say is like, I'm going to correct you a little bit. Your production
Please.
hasn't evolved.
Oh,
In terms of like, I mean, of course, computers are different, editing is different, but like, if we were to like do the legacy big band thing and go to some huge, gorgeous studio and have people do everything for us, that's evolved. This is like the kick drum microphone was
Evolved.
duct taped to a stand. Like this this was very raw on purpose.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we have to make this ourselves. So emotionally, yes, it's raw, but also like it's pretty fucking raw. Like, you know, like Define the Great Lines mixer was Chris Algie, who mixed everything. Go Google his name. He's mixed everything you've ever listened to. You know what I mean? Like
I know that name.
Yeah, we hired a buddy to mix this. This was like very, dude, like we call it food store studios. This whole thing is food store studios. You know what I mean? Like we went all the way back to the well, which is I think the way that we felt about making shit in 03 and 04. You know, it's like and sort of like not on purpose and kind of on purpose. I don't know, man. But yeah, it is raw, and I think that a big part of that is the emotional component, but there is a technical component where we didn't want it to be overly done. You know what I mean? Like,
you know what's interesting about that is in both of yours and Tim's interviews, when I talked to you on the first rounds, we came to this like respect for the new generation of how cool we think it is that kids can take a laptop and just make anything. And as you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, sure, you're not kids and like you've got real instruments, but this feels like your version of that. Like this feels like y'all just using the resource that you have. And it's like, all right, cool. Like we're going to build this studio a mile down the street from the food store. We're going to use what we have. We're going to use our friends, and we're going to make the sounds that we can make. And that's really fucking cool.
Dude, it's funny to talk about because like where we made that album, like our studio is like 2 8x10 rooms. Like it's gross. You know what I mean? It's in an attic.
Yeah.
I recorded like 90% of the drums in my underwear because it was too hot to like.
It was just Florida and just in a fucking non-AC.
I love that shit. But anyway, like, you know, like it is our version of that. And I think that what really gave us the gas and sort of the courage to make it ourselves was the fact that like, so where I'm sitting right now, I sit 50, 60 hours a week and make people's stuff on my laptop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all the time. Chris makes movies in his house, movie scores for people, you know, like Journey's commercials and shit. Like, and we're like, why can't we make this our thing too? You know what I mean? It's funny because it's like when it's your family and people you're closest to, it's always the hardest to pull the proverbial trigger on stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like when it's like, you know, I just produced a record right before the holidays in Wichita, and I took all of my gear, trucked it to Wichita, set up a studio in a loft space, and made a band's entire album in 7 days.
Yep.
Like, and I didn't even think about it. Like it was like,
you just do it.
Like, and until I'm talking about it right now, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, that's easy. You know, totally. It's already, it's at mix right now. Like, I didn't even think about it. Like, but when it's your own thing, it's like, wait, it's like, is that okay? And especially if your own thing is successful, you know, like
there's all this pressure. There's this
you're
extra,
like, can I build the Daytona 500 car and get it up to minimum speed? Like, can I do that? Is that something I'm even capable of doing?
Even though you've been racing for 20 years.
Yeah, I've been racing 20 years. We've done the Daytona 500 20 times. But for some reason, you know, you can't, like, I wrote a record when I was 23 for a side project I have called called Southern Weather. And that term is what that's about. It's like in the South growing up, you know, it's always the hardest to talk to your family, you know, like it's always the hardest to be like, I love you or I hate you, you know, or like fix this about yourself. Like, I'll fix this about you can't do that. So I think that there's always been a little bit of that with us where it's like, you know, can you just bite off the bullet and do it yourself? And I think that we learned that this time is like, And it's a proof of concept for us. It's so dumb 20 years in, but I finally feel like I have proof of concept for Underoath. Isn't that stupid?
20
years.
My next question for you was, what did you learn? Ultimately, in doing this, now that it's done, what did you learn? And you just said it, didn't you?
That we know who we are, and that we know how to make what we want to make. And that, to me, if no one listens to the album, is worth it. You know what I mean? Like, and I hope it's successful, because that would just be the cherry right on top. Like, we did it ourselves, proof of concept, and it's fucking big, or whatever. Like, but I do think that if nothing happens with Voyeurist, I'm so proud of it, because I know that me and my friends can make what we want to make.
Holy fuck.
Big deal, man, right?
That is a big deal.
It's a big deal. And I'm so, the relief that I feel is like, it's immense relief, because I'm so proud. I'm proud of the music, yes, but I'm mostly proud of us, that we were able to start with zero and turn something into a record label, mixed and mastered, that we made ourselves, and we didn't kill each other in the process. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's awesome. That's everything I wanted it to be. And it's like, again, too, it was really interesting going into this follow-up podcast, because accidentally, I think we made an absolutely incredible 2-part episode with the first thing.
Yeah.
And I was like hard pressed. Like I was like, I don't want to say nervous, but I put some weight on my shoulders, where I was like, well, fuck, what do I talk to him about now? Like, we covered it. Like, we talked so much, and we always have good conversation every time we talk, but I was like, how do I make this something meaningful? How do I make this more than just talking in circles of what are you up to? And I felt a certain pressure to talk about the album, and I didn't want it to be tell me about each song breakdown. And what you explained and what I understood out of this, and I'm so glad you went all the way back to Erase Me and really painted it, because now, like, as that casual listener, like, I could not be more excited. I could not be more excited about anything coming out.
I think this is a better podcast than the other one.
Fuck, all right, let's go.
Well, the reason I think that is because, like, I love when you, as a podcast, like, consumer, I love when you listen to a podcast and there's one question asked and then it just goes. Like, you really asked one question. We talked about life in the last 20 months, which was very organic and normal. And then you asked one question and we went for an hour and a half. That's the way you do it.
Yeah.
That's the way you do it, bro. So good.
Bro.
So good.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, shoot. Is there any other specific to shout out? Catch y'all on tour? Listen to the album wherever the fuck you want to.
We're starting a tour February 18th with Every Time I Die and Spirit Box. It starts in
soon.
It starts. I'm trying to. Why? Oh no! I'm trying to find.
Opening the phone after Do Not Disturb and everything is.
Yeah. It starts February 18th. Spirit Box and Every Time I Die. It starts in Dallas, Texas. On the 18th at a place called the Southside Ballroom, and it goes through until the end of March, I think 26th or 27th, something like that. The album Voyeurist comes out in 12 days from today, January 14th. There's 4 or 5 songs out now that I'm super excited about. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I want to say, in summation of this whole thing, is if you're listening to it, if you listen to this and you listen to the album, try to listen to it through this lens, which I think is going to be the most beneficial. So, yeah.
Fucking A, man. That's so cool. Fucking A, dude. It's always a pleasure, dude.
So fun, man. Listen anytime. Anytime.
So there you have it. Another incredible episode with Aaron, the story of Voyeurist. I am so impressed and inspired, and I just everything. Every time I talk to him, every time I think about anything with that band, I'm left with this feeling of pure inspiration and just being impressed. So I hope you walked away from that, whether you're a deep Underoath fan or a casual listener or just interested in him as a person. I hope you walked away with that same feeling and enjoyed it. Make sure to share the album with your friends. Make sure to tell everyone you know about it. Word of mouth helps any type of media grow the absolute most. As I'm recording this, I haven't edited it yet, but I'm imagining that there was a bunch of other bits that I had to edit out of the main episode that I'm gonna then put onto the Patreon as a bonus episode. So go check that out if you'd like even more. That's patreon.com/whereareallmyfriends. The last thing that I should say is I just made a Discord for the podcast where we've started to build a really incredible community, and we've had some really rad conversations. It's a much more casual, we'll all jump on there on the voice channel. I'll answer people's questions. We'll talk about the state of the industry and careers. And it feels like a really rad community. So I'd love you to join. I've put a link in the description to all of this. I think that says it all. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'll be back next week with another.